It's time for you to lock out. Yeah, I said it. You're not locking in. I want you to lock out. A lot of you might be saying, Cole, I already do this. I spend so much time procrastinating, being lazy. Not exactly. Not in the way you should be. And you need to start escaping more in a way that's actually productive so that when you come back to your work, you feel re-energized rather than more burnt out and less inspired. I've talked about this concept of revenge bedtime procrastination. It's when you spend your time at night when you get home from work or school or whatever you have to do, scrolling on social media or watching something on your phone as a way to reclaim the free time you don't have at any other point in your day that you should be spending being asleep. This is how most of us spend our time locking out, away from work. We just turn off our brains, scroll mindlessly, and after that session, we feel worse than we did, or the exact same we did right after work when we started scrolling. And that's not how free time should feel. The modern world has sapped our ability to truly rest and recover in times when we are locked out. And I think a big reason for that is because the ways in which we escape our problems and realities are so easily addictive, and they don't give you a new perspective on your work when you do come back to it, or just allow you to see the world differently. I put this quote of the week at the end of my last newsletter. It is from a philosopher, Eric Hoffer. Man staggers through life, yapped at by his reason, pulled and shoved by his appetites, whispered to by fears, beckoned by hopes. Small wonder that what he craves most is self-forgetting. And self-forgetting is, I think, the word we should focus on here. It feels good to forget about yourself for a little while. And in fact, I think it's actually beneficial. There's been a lot of pushback against escapism that I've even talked about, because the ways in which we escape now, like I said, aren't really you escaping from yourself or relieving the problems you have in your life, but rather exacerbating those problems. Social media shows you more of your anxieties and depression and anger, because that's the way a lot of it is psychologically designed to be towards, to show you the parts of yourself that are more geared towards the negative emotions. If that has a strong pull on you and you have a hard time stepping away from social media and all the rage baiting and all the echo chambers, it's just going to make you, it's going to remind you of your problems even more. But if you truly locked out the way you were supposed to, the way that people have been for millennia, I don't even know if that's the, I think it's like centuries, then you would come back to your work feeling re-energized, and you'd have a newfound appreciation for your work. So something I learned recently that's really interesting is the concept of sitting by a fire at night, or nighttime conversations, why they feel so intimate and personal. So the evolution of our species kind of caused us to want us to open up more at night. And this is going to tie back into escapism and the way in which we escape from this reality. Don't worry. And because for so many years, for hundreds and hundreds of years, we were spending our nights the only way in which we could, because we didn't have technology, electricity, things that could keep us up at night and stimulate us. And most of our work could not be done at night. Because that was the case, the majority of our time spent at night was sitting around just speaking to each other about our issues, about stories we want to tell, creating fantasies, getting lost in other worlds, and for a moment forgetting about the inevitable sufferings and pain and difficulty that comes with being a human. Being a human is very hard. It requires so much challenge and growth from you. And you're not wrong for feeling so overwhelmed, especially in the modern age when there's so much information being bombarded at you all the time, you're not wrong for feeling burnt out. This stuff isn't natural to us. What's natural to us is spending our time at night escaping from this reality. But now we're just more tethered into it, if anything, through our devices. On top of that, everything feels very unpredictable right now. Think about the same time period in which people were sitting around a fire every night, speaking about vulnerabilities and just creating campfire stories. Their job probably didn't change throughout their entire life. They had the same occupation. If they were the one to collect hay for the cows, that's probably what they would be doing for their entire lives. If they had an inn and they were an innkeeper, they would spend 50, 60, 70 years just doing that, maybe working their way up within that one inn. You didn't travel much. There wasn't that possibility. And in a way, possibility allows you to seek more options, which is great, but then you have this overload of what is possible in the modern world. And because so many things are possible now, and because so many things are changing so rapidly, it feels like in 1 second you could be replaced, or in 1 second you could lose everything. The stability in the modern world, I think, is what's really damaging us right now. And we love to have this idea of hustling all the time, and that's the only way to get out right now is discipline, 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 discipline. Hustle as hard as you can. Do not escape your reality. That is bad. Escaping your reality is escaping your problems. And if you are continuously escaping your problems, you're not actually confronting them and solving them. And to an extent, that is true, yes. But we're all locking out the wrong way. And I want to teach you how to lock out properly. What is the best way to lock out is something that makes you self-forget. That means anything that takes you away from this reality, which is very overwhelming, which is hard, which people are dealing with all of these atrocities that they don't deserve, chronic illness, premature deaths in their family, poverty. Like, everybody needs a little bit of coping and escaping from what they're going through in the current moment, because that proper escaping allows them to come back and better deal with their problems. So ask yourself, are the ways I'm escaping right now helping me to deal with my problems when I do come back to confront them? Or is it only leaving me more drained, anxious, angry, and depressed? This is why I will always be an advocate for occasional playing of video games. When you play in an open world, something like Skyrim or The Witcher or Elden Ring, you can forget about yourself and become the character you are playing as. And it's this whole other world to get immersed in. Just for a moment, you can relieve yourself of all those issues in a healthy way and place yourself in a different identity temporarily. I think Jim Carrey said something about depression being you wanting to take a break from being who you are. That is what you want to do. You want to depress, something like that. And that's really true. I think we all need to forget who we are for a little while, whether that is immersing ourselves in a video game in which we're taking on the role of a character, whether that is reading. And me personally, I've been talking about reading fantasy, other fiction, because it is much better of an escapism than reading nonfiction, like a self-help book. If you read a self-help book, you're only thinking about, okay, what can I do to be better? What can I do next in my life as this identity? Whereas you read fiction, you are temporarily escaping to another world so that you may gain some sort of lesson or knowledge from that world and be able to bring it back into the existence in which me exists. This is why creating maybe art in your free time or some other sort of creative pursuit, like a hobby like sewing or meditating, is so beneficial. When I was going through a terrible breakup at the start of the pandemic, around March 2020, I did not want to be myself. It was hard to face reality as much as I felt like I was required to. And facing reality during that time period, as much as I wasn't actually beneficial. Sitting with my thoughts and processing the grief and the loss I was going through was super important. But that is the sort of thing in which, if you pair with a proper, healthy, escaping, coping mechanism, then it will actually allow you to deal with that grief and loss better and perhaps even quicker than if you were to just try to sit with those feelings, sit with the thoughts and emotions and try to process them. That's what we tell everybody when they're going through something traumatic or they're going through a difficult period in their life. Like, just sit with your thoughts, get to know yourself better, and gain the self-awareness needed to accept those negative emotions and then start the process of growing through them. And yeah, I'm not arguing against that. But during that time in the pandemic, when I was doing that, what also was just as helpful was the fact that I would go to my friend's house and we'd sit in their basement and just watch a movie or something or play video games. Being with my friends, being able to not be myself for a little bit, to not have to face reality, which sounds so, it has such a negative connotation, that entire phrase. It was actually so helpful for allowing me to process and just relieve myself of the heaviness of life at that period, to allow myself to lose myself within my friends, through our conversations, like conversations would be had at a campfire at night for the first thousands of years that humans were existing. That whole experience is just super important to the human existence. And then also the movie itself. When you're watching a movie, you kind of forget about this reality for a while. You forget about yourself and you immerse yourself in the movie and you immerse yourself in the story that is probably not related to what's actually going on in real life right now. So the next time someone tells you just need to lock in all the time, or you just need to sit with your emotions and thoughts all the time and never ever escape reality, don't escape your problems, well, there's nuance to that. It doesn't always mean that escaping is a bad thing. For so long, I've wanted to create something for you guys that doesn't keep you connected to social media, because my whole brand is on social media and everything I do is tied to the internet. I wanted to create something that takes you away from that. And that's partly why I'm writing my novel right now. It is going to be a fiction book. It's a fantasy book set in modern times, but the fantasy sci-fi element is that the main character goes through this tragic loss and his mind splits in two, and he gains the ability to see into a parallel reality. And it's going to touch on themes of the modern world, loss, grief, being a 20-something-year-old in a post-pandemic world, which is something a lot of you are trying to navigate right now. If you're interested in following along the journey of me writing that book, I give updates on my newsletter every single week. So check out the link in the description to subscribe to the newsletter. And I have my self-mastery community where at night, usually, we have these video call conversations of us kind of just sharing ideas and thoughts and trying to grow and keep each other accountable. Having that whole campfire bonding experience is what I've created in that community. If you want to check that out as well, link in the description. And that's it.